Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Great to be here.
Today, we're jumping into a really compelling story. Pakistan's journey to becoming a nuclear power.
Yeah, it's quite a narrative, full of strategic necessity, determination
Yeah.
against some pretty big odds.
Exactly. So if you're interested in geopolitics, maybe how technology develops under pressure, or just those surprising twists in international relations, this one's for you.
We're going to try and unpack how Pakistan really navigated this complex world of sanctions, espionage, even potential military threats to get the bomb.
And the core question, drawing from a detailed research article we've looked at, is basically, how did they do it? Against those odds, how did Pakistan develop its atomic bomb, and what were the key moments, the key factors along the way?
Okay, let's get into it. Where do we start?
Well, the research really points to the beginning, the motivation.
Right. You have to understand the historical context. The trauma of partition, that deep-seated rivalry with India, that's the bedrock.
But the real spark, the immediate trigger, that was India's 1974 test, wasn't it? Smiling Buddha.
Absolutely. That single event just, well, it completely shifted the power dynamic as Pakistan saw it. It created this immediate sense of vulnerability. They felt they had to respond.
And that urgency, it's really captured in that famous quote from Zulfikar Ali Bhutto saying the nation would eat grass if necessary.
Yeah, eat grass or leaves, I think he said. It's such a powerful image.
It really underlines that absolute national commitment right from the top leadership. It sort of sets the stage for everything that follows, that determination.
It does. And speaking of determination and, well, overcoming challenges, you can't talk about this without mentioning Dr. Abdul Qadir Khan, a pivotal figure.
A.Q. Khan. The article details his time working in the Netherlands, right, at Urenco.
Exactly, Urenco. And crucially, how he acquired those centrifuge designs.
Centrifuges, just to remind everyone, those complex machines you need for enriching uranium, right, for a weapon.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Getting those designs was a massive shortcut. It basically jump-started what would have been a much, much harder, longer indigenous R&D effort.
And this acquisition, that's the foundation for the Khan Research Laboratories, or KRL.
That's right. KRL became the hub.
But this is where you get those really different perspectives, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. In the West, it's largely seen as, industrial espionage, a breach of trust.
Whereas in Pakistan, as the article notes, he's often viewed very differently.
As a national hero, the man who gave Pakistan the capability it felt it needed for survival. It really shows how perspective shifts depending on where you stand.
Yeah, definitely. And the international community reacted pretty strongly, didn't they? Especially once news of the designs and the program got out.
Oh, yes. Swiftly. The research talks a lot about the sanctions, economic, military sanctions throughout the 80s and 90s.
The Pressler Amendment is a key one mentioned.
It is. That was U.S. legislation, and it basically tied most U.S. aid, military and economic, to an annual presidential certification that Pakistan didn't possess a nuclear device.
So when that certification stopped in the early 90s,
it had a big impact. Cut off a lot of assistance, particularly military hardware and aid. Strained U.S.-Pakistan relations quite significantly for a time.
But here's a fascinating twist the research brings out. These sanctions meant to stop the program.
They didn't quite work as intended, did they?
It seems not entirely. The article suggests they actually, perhaps ironically, pushed Pakistan towards more self-reliance, strategic independence.
Yeah, it forced them to innovate, to find their own solutions, develop their own networks, their own techniques, because they couldn't just buy things off the shelf.
It's quite something, progressing despite that intense external pressure.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it does make you question, how effective sanctions are when a nation feels its core security is on the line.
That drive for self-reliance led to some unique developments, but there was another layer of pressure too, right? A much more direct threat.
Yes, a very direct threat. The article uncovers these discussions, apparently quite serious, between India and Israel in the early 1980s.
About a preemptive strike.
It's exactly. A potential joint strike on Pakistan's main nuclear facility at Kahuta.
Wow. That sounds incredibly risky. The article compares it to Israel's strike on Iraq's Osirak reactor, Operation Opera.
It does. The idea, reportedly, involved Israeli aircraft potentially using Indian bases for refueling or launch. It brings home just how high the stakes were.
But the plan never happened. Why not?
Well, according to the research, several reasons. Logistical challenges, for one. Then the very real risk of Pakistani retaliation potentially against Indian nuclear sites, and just the danger of escalating into a full-blown regional war.
It underlines the incredibly tense strategic calculation back then.
Definitely. And Pakistan wasn't passive. The article mentions their response, the ISI, their intelligence agency, apparently issued public warnings.
Warnings about hitting back at Indian facilities like BRC.
Yes, places like the Bapa Atomic Research Center. And they stepped up air patrols, the PAF, around Kahuta. It was a clear signal. We know, and we're ready.
So this external threat, it didn't deter them.
Quite the opposite, it seems. It probably just validated their belief that they needed this capability as the ultimate security guarantee, strengthened their resolve.
It seems like every hurdle just made them more determined. Beyond these big military threats, there was also a sort of hidden war going on.
Yes, the covert side. Intelligence agencies, CIA, MI6, others were definitely trying to disrupt the program.
How? What sort of things were they trying?
Things like trying to recruit scientists or engineers working on the project, monitoring procurement networks, trying to figure out what components they were buying and from where. Standard intelligence stuff, but focused on this specific target.
And Pakistan's counter-effort.
The article suggests it was pretty robust. Led by the ISI, they developed a strong counterintelligence shield.
How did that work?
Well, things like using coded language for purchasing sensitive items, setting up front companies or dummy corporations to make procurement less obvious, very strict internal security, compartmentalization, basically making it as hard as possible for outsiders to figure out what was going on or to interfere.
A high-stakes game of cat and mouse happening behind the scenes.
Absolutely. A crucial, if less visible, part of the story.
Which brings us to 1998, May 1998.
The decisive moment. India conducts 5 nuclear tests, Pokhran 2A.
And the pressure inside Pakistan to respond must have been immense.
Overwhelming, by all accounts. Political pressure, public pressure.
Yeah.
And they did respond.
6 tests of their own. In the Chagai Hills, Balochistan, end of May 1998.
That's right, Chagai Fix and Chagai II. And with that, Pakistan became the world's 7th declared nuclear power.
The article highlights the reaction: immediate international condemnation, more sanctions.
Widespread condemnation, yes, but domestically.
A very different story. Huge celebrations, right? Seen as a moment of national pride, survival, achieving parity.
Exactly. That stark difference, international anger versus national jubilation, really captures the whole complexity of nuclear proliferation issues. It fundamentally changed the game in South Asia.
So what's the lasting impact? How did this change things for Pakistan moving forward?
Well, the research explains it fundamentally shaped their security doctrine. It led to what they call full-spectrum deterrence.
Full-spectrum deterrence. What does that mean in practice?
Basically, it means having a range of nuclear capabilities, potentially including tactical or battlefield nukes, designed to deter any level of aggression, from a large conventional attack right up to a nuclear threat from India. It redefines that strategic balance.
Of course, there was also the later controversy surrounding A.Q. Khan himself, right? The proliferation network.
Yes, that surfaced in the early 2000s. It brought a lot of renewed international scrutiny and concern. Pakistan's official stance was that this was unauthorized activity, and they took steps to dismantle the network.
And they also established a formal body to oversee the arsenal.
Right, the National Command Authority, the NCA, set up to manage the safety, security, and command and control of their nuclear assets, a crucial stink in responsible stewardship, given the stakes.
Okay, so bringing this all together, what are the key takeaways for you, for our listeners?
Well, I think for you, the story really hits on themes of strategic sovereignty, that powerful drive for a nation to control its own security destiny.
And incredible resilience, too, wouldn't you say? Facing threats, sanctions, covert action.
Definitely resilience. And it highlights that really complex dance between national security needs, as a country sees them, and the international pressure for non-proliferation.
The surprising bits for me were things like that near-miss joint strike plan.
Yeah, that's startling. And also the apparent effectiveness of Pakistan's counterintelligence in protecting the program for so long. It shows the sheer determination involved.
Absolutely. So as this deep dive shows, Pakistan's path to nuclear weapons wasn't simple. It was shaped by, intense regional rivalry, technological ingenuity, sometimes, as we said, unconventional.
And this really strong national will to gain strategic independence, even when facing huge international opposition.
Which leaves us with a thought, maybe something for you to mull over.
Yeah, considering Pakistan's experience, how do nations navigate that really tricky balance between their own security needs and these global efforts to stop the spread of nuclear weapons, especially now in a world that feels increasingly multipolar?
And maybe what lessons can we draw from Pakistan's specific path? That choice between, say, relying on yourself versus working within the international system to achieve what you see as vital strategic goals.
Big questions. Plenty to think about there.